My husband said he fired his assistant for being incompetent. Then she showed up at our door to return the apartment key he'd given her. I stared at the silver key in her trembling hand. Behind me, Greg's face went pale. What apartment? I asked slowly. She looked between us, clearly confused. The one on Riverside? Where I've been staying for the past 8 months? Her voice cracked. He said I could live there rent-free while I got my certification. Greg stepped forward. Natalie, this isn't— You told me your wife knew, she interrupted. You said she was fine with it because I was helping with the overflow work. The overflow work. I managed our family accounting firm from home while raising our 2 kids. There was no overflow. How old are you? I heard myself ask. 24. She wiped her eyes. Look, I'm sorry. Greg said you were separated, that you were just staying together for the kids. My laugh came out sharp. We'd celebrated our anniversary last week. Posted photos. I took the key from her hand. What else did he tell you? She pulled out her phone. The text chain made my stomach drop. Messages about loving her, plans to leave me, promises about their future, and photos of my husband in that apartment I didn't know we owned. The certification he was paying for, I said quietly. What was it for? Real estate. Her voice was barely a whisper. He said once I got licensed, we could run the property management business together, that he'd been building a portfolio without you knowing. I turned to Greg. His mouth opened and closed. That's when I noticed the paperwork under Natalie's arm. What's that? She handed it over. Loan documents, mortgage papers, all signed by Greg. 5 properties purchased over the past 2 years using our business as collateral. Nearly $2 million in debt tied to our company, our home, everything we'd built. The bank called me today, Natalie said. They said the Riverside payment was 6 weeks overdue. That's why Greg let me go. He said I made mistakes with client files, but she looked at the papers in my hands. Those aren't mistakes, are they? I felt something shift inside me, something cold. Greg, I said softly, where's the money from the business account? The $82,000 for the kids' college fund? He couldn't meet my eyes. Natalie was crying harder. He told me you were controlling, that you monitored every penny. I thought I was helping him escape. She looked at me with pity. I'm so sorry. I studied her face. Young, trusting, probably reminded Greg of me 15 years ago. The apartment, I said. Is your name on any paperwork? She shook her head. He said it was better to keep it in his name for tax purposes. Of course he did. I pulled out my phone and photographed every document. Then I did something that surprised even me. Natalie, I need you to do something for me. She looked up, confused. Don't move out of that apartment. Not yet. Greg finally found his voice. What are you? And write down everything. Every promise he made. Every property he mentioned. Every conversation about money. I met her eyes. Can you do that? She nodded slowly, understanding starting to dawn. Good, I said. Because in 48 hours, when the forensic accountant I'm hiring tears apart our business records, I'm going to need a witness. Greg's face went from pale to gray. You can't what? I turned to him. Can't hire a lawyer? Can't freeze our accounts? Can't show these documents to the bank and ask why my signature was forged? His silence told me everything. I looked back at Natalie. That job offer he mentioned? The property management position? She nodded. You were supposed to start next month, weren't you? How did you? Because that's when he was planning to serve me with divorce papers. Right after transferring everything into a business with your name attached so it wouldn't show up in the settlement. The look on Greg's face confirmed it. Natalie left 10 minutes later with instructions to email me everything by morning. Greg stood in our living room, surrounded by 15 years of our life together. Family photos on the mantle. Our kids' artwork on the fridge. The couch we'd picked out together when we first got married. I can explain, he started. Don't. I held up my hand. Just don't. It's not what you think. Natalie was 24 years old and living in an apartment you bought with money you stole from our children's future. My voice was steady. Too steady. How long? How long what? How long have you been planning this? He sank onto the couch. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. That's not an answer. 2 years. He couldn't look at me. Maybe longer. I don't know. 2 years. While I was managing our accounts, paying our bills, taking care of our kids, while I was building what I thought was our future. The properties, I said. All 5 of them? He nodded. And you forged my signature on every loan document? Another nod. I laughed. Actually laughed. You realize that's fraud, right? Like, go to prison fraud? The bank never checked because they trusted you. Because we've been their clients for 12 years and you handle business accounts. I sat down across from him. What was the plan, Greg? Take me for everything in the divorce while hiding millions in assets under your girlfriend's name? She's not my girlfriend. She has texts from you saying you love her. That was just— He stopped, started again. I needed her to believe it, to trust me enough to put her name on things when the time came. My stomach turned. So you manipulated a 24-year-old girl into thinking you loved her so you could use her to commit fraud? It's not fraud if what? If you don't get caught? I stood up. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow morning I'm calling my lawyer, then the bank, then the police. You wouldn't. I turned at the doorway. Watch me. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the guest room bed going through every document Natalie had photographed and sent me. Property deeds, loan applications, transfer records, all with my signature on them. All forgeries. My phone buzzed at 2:00 a.m. It was Natalie. I can't stop thinking about today, her text read. I found more documents. Can we meet tomorrow? I typed back immediately. Coffee shop on Main Street. 9 a.m. She sent me 14 more files. Bank statements showing transfers I'd never authorized. Emails between Greg and mortgage brokers discussing how to structure loans without spousal consent. a draft operating agreement for a property management LLC with Natalie's name as managing partner and Greg's as silent investor. Silent investor, using my money. I forwarded everything to my email, made backups on 2 different USB drives, sent copies to my sister. At 6 a.m., I heard Greg moving around downstairs, making coffee like it was a normal morning, like our entire life hadn't imploded. I got dressed, walked downstairs, and poured myself a cup. "We need to talk," he said. "We really don't. The kids are still asleep, and will stay that way until I figure out how to explain that their father is a criminal." He flinched. "That's not fair." "You know what's not fair? Spending 15 years building a life with someone who was planning to destroy it the entire time." "Not the entire time." His voice was quiet. "Just the last few years." "Oh, well, that makes it so much better." Our son wandered into the kitchen at 7 a.m., backpack already on. He was 13, perpetually rushing, perpetually hungry. "Morning," he mumbled, grabbing a granola bar. "Morning, sweetie." I kept my voice light. "Dad's taking you to school today." Greg looked at me, surprised. "I have an appointment," I said, staring at him. "With my lawyer." Our son barely registered it. Teenagers. Everything is background noise to them. After Greg left with both kids, I sat in the empty kitchen and cried. Not pretty tears, ugly, snotty, shoulder-shaking sobs. The kind where you can't breathe and your chest hurts and you wonder if you'll ever stop. I gave myself 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, redid my makeup, and drove to meet Natalie. She was already there, sitting in the back corner with a coffee and a folder 2 inches thick. "I printed everything," she said as I sat down. "Every text, every email, every document he ever showed me." I opened the folder. It was worse than I thought. Greg had been running this scheme for 30 months. The first property was purchased in my name without my knowledge 24 months ago. He'd created an entire fake email account in my name to correspond with lenders. He'd practiced my signature until he could replicate it perfectly. "He showed me this once," Natalie said quietly. "Said he'd been working on it because you were sick, and he needed to be able to sign things on your behalf. I've never been sick. I know that now." There were rental agreements showing the properties were being leased out. Income I'd never seen. Thousands of dollars a month flowing into an account I didn't know existed. "Where's the money going?" I asked. "Offshore account in the Cayman Islands." She pulled out another document. "He opened it 20 months ago. Said it was for our future together. Our future. Not his future with me, his actual wife. His future with a girl half his age who thought she was in love." "How did you meet him?" I asked. "Career fair at the community college. I was studying accounting. He gave this whole talk about entrepreneurship and building wealth." She laughed bitterly. "I thought he was inspiring, successful. I had no idea he was stealing from his own family to do it." "When did the affair start?" 6 months after we met. He kept showing up at the campus coffee shop. We'd talk for hours. He made me feel smart and special and like I could do anything." She wiped her eyes. "Then he kissed me one night and said he'd been falling in love with me for months, that his marriage was dead but he couldn't leave until he figured out the finances." Classic. Textbook. I almost wanted to applaud the predictability. "Did you ever meet our kids?" She shook her head. "He said it would be too complicated, that you were turning them against him and it was better if we kept our distance until the divorce was final." I closed the folder, looked at her across the table. She was young and scared and probably felt like the world's biggest idiot. "Thank you for bringing me this," I said. "I don't know what else to do." Her voice cracked. "I dropped out of school for him. I gave up my apartment because he said Riverside was nicer. I turned down a job offer because he said I didn't need to work once the business launched." "What job offer?" "Entry-level position at an accounting firm. $45,000 a year. Not much, but it was real, and it was mine." She stared at her coffee. "He convinced me I could make so much more working with him, that I'd be a partner in something successful instead of just another employee. He'd isolated her, made her dependent. Classic abuser tactics." "The job offer," I said. "Is it still available?" "I don't know. That was 8 months ago." I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. "What firm?" "Bennett and Associates." I knew them. I'd done contract work for them 5 years ago. I scrolled to Catherine Bennett's number and called. "Catherine? Hi, it's me. Listen, I have a favor to ask. You had an opening for an entry-level accountant about 8 months ago. Is that position still available?" I listened. "Perfect. I have someone I'd like you to interview. Bright, motivated, just got out of a bad situation and needs a fresh start. More listening. Tuesday at 10 Jiang. She'll be there. Thank you." I hung up and looked at Natalie. "You have an interview Tuesday." "I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will. Because staying in that apartment and wallowing in this mess isn't going to help anyone. But the documents are safely copied and will be used to put my husband exactly where he belongs." I stood up. "You made a mistake. You trusted the wrong person. Welcome to the club. Now you get to decide what you do next." She stared at me for a long moment, then she nodded. We spent the next hour going through everything. She gave me names of other people Greg had mentioned, business associates, other properties, a second girlfriend I didn't know about who lived in the next state over. Second girlfriend, because apparently one wasn't enough. "Her name is Cassandra," Natalie said. "She's 26, works as a paralegal. Greg said he was helping her study for the bar exam. Is he sleeping with her too?" "I don't know. Maybe?" She pulled out her phone and showed me Instagram photos. Greg and Cassandra at a restaurant, at a concert, on a weekend trip to wine country, all posted while I was home with our kids. I took screenshots of everything. By the time we finished, it was noon. I had enough evidence to bury Greg in criminal and civil court. Fraud, forgery, embezzlement. The list went on. I drove to my lawyer's office and spent 90 minutes laying everything out. She sat across from me, taking notes, her face getting grimmer with each new revelation. "This is one of the worst cases I've seen," she said finally. "And I've been doing this for 22 years. What are my options? Divorce with full financial disclosure and forensic accounting, criminal charges for the fraud and forgery, civil suit for the embezzled funds. She looked at me over her glasses. Do you want all of that? I want everything. My voice didn't waver. Every single thing I'm entitled to, and then some. It's going to get ugly. It's already ugly. She nodded. I'll file the paperwork today. We'll freeze all accounts, put liens on the properties, and submit the fraud evidence to the DA's office. By end of business today, Greg won't be able to access a single penny. Do it. I went home to an empty house. Greg was still at work, the kids at school. I sat in the living room and waited. He walked in at 6 p.m., keys jangling, stopped when he saw me sitting there. We need to talk about, you've been served, I said, handing him the envelope my lawyer had couriered over an hour ago. Divorce papers, restraining order on all accounts, and a courtesy copy of the criminal complaint I filed with the DA's office this afternoon. He opened the envelope. I watched the color drain from his face. You can't do this. I just did. The kids will be told an age-appropriate version of the truth, that their father made some very bad choices and now has to face the consequences. He sank onto the couch, the same couch where he'd sat last night trying to justify it all. I'll lose everything, he whispered. Yes, I said. You will. My practice, my license, everything I've built, everything we built, with my money, my trust, my forgiveness every time you worked late or had an emergency or needed to travel for business. I stood up. Turns out you were just building an escape plan. Our daughter came home at 6:30. She was 11, perceptive, immediately sensing something was wrong. Why does Dad look like that? She whispered to me in the kitchen. We'll talk about it after dinner, I said. But Greg couldn't hold it together that long. Halfway through the meal, he started crying, full-on sobbing into his spaghetti. Both kids stared at him. Dad? Our son said. What's wrong? Your mother is ruining my life, Greg choked out. I set down my fork. Kids, go to your rooms. But now, they went. I heard their footsteps on the stairs, then the soft click of doors closing. I turned to Greg. Don't you dare put this on them. Don't you dare make them think I'm the villain here. You filed criminal charges. I could go to prison. You committed crimes. Actions have consequences. I was trying to build something better for us. By stealing from us, by forging my signature, by lying to everyone. I stood up. You need to leave. This is my house. Actually, according to the restraining order my lawyer filed, you have 24 hours to collect your things and find somewhere else to stay. You can't kick me out of my own house. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and showed him the court order. You have until tomorrow evening. After that, the locks will be changed, and anything you leave behind becomes property of the estate. He left that night, threw some clothes in a bag, and walked out without saying goodbye to the kids. I sat them down in the living room after I heard his car pull away. What's going on? Our son asked. Why was Dad crying? I took a breath. Your father and I are getting divorced. Silence. Why? Our daughter's voice was small. Because he made some choices that hurt our family. He took money that wasn't his and lied about where it was going. How much money? Our son asked. Practical. Like me. A lot. Enough that we might lose our house. That got their attention. Where will we live? Our daughter asked. I don't know yet. But wherever it is, we'll be together. I promise. They asked more questions. I answered them as honestly as I could without destroying their image of their father entirely. They were kids. They didn't need to know about Natalie or Cassandra or the offshore accounts. Not yet, anyway. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running numbers in my head. The house had $200,000 in equity. Greg had burned through the college fund and taken out $2 million in fraudulent loans. Even if I recovered everything, we'd be underwater for years. My phone buzzed. Text from Natalie. I told Cassandra everything. She's willing to testify too. He promised her the same things he promised me. I texted back. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. None of us did. The forensic accountant my lawyer hired called the next morning. She'd been through one night of records and already found $340,000 in transfers I hadn't authorized. This is systematic fraud, she said. He's been siphoning money for years. Small amounts at first, then larger as he got bolder. How much total? I won't know for another week. But based on what I'm seeing, at least $500,000, possibly more. $500,000. From our joint accounts. From the business. From our kids' futures. I felt sick. The DA's office called that afternoon. They wanted to meet. Discuss the evidence. Determine if they had enough for criminal charges. I went in the next day with every document I had. Sat across from a prosecutor who looked younger than Natalie. This is substantial, he said, flipping through the file. Multiple counts of forgery, fraud, embezzlement. He's looking at 15 to 20 years if convicted. Will he be convicted? With this evidence? Absolutely. Greg tried to call me 18 times that week. I didn't answer. He showed up at the house twice. I didn't open the door. He sent emails begging me to drop the charges, promising to pay everything back, swearing it would never happen again. I forwarded them all to my lawyer. The bank called. They'd discovered the fraudulent loans and were launching their own investigation. They wanted to know if I'd be filing a civil suit. Already in progress, I told them. Our kids struggled. Our son got into a fight at school when someone made a comment about his dad being a criminal. Our daughter stopped eating, pushing food around her plate during meals. I got them both into therapy, individual sessions twice a week. They're processing trauma, the therapist told me. Their entire world has been upended. This is normal. Normal. Nothing felt normal. I sold the house 6 weeks later. We couldn't afford it anymore, not with Greg's debts attached to the mortgage. We moved into a 3-bedroom apartment across town. Smaller, cheaper, but ours. The kids hated it at first. Kept asking when we could go home. This is home now, I told them. Natalie got the job at Bennett & Associates. She called me her first week to say thank you. I never would have applied if you hadn't pushed me, she said. You deserve a real chance. Not whatever Greg was selling. Cassandra filed her own lawsuit. Turns out Greg had promised her half ownership in a business that didn't exist. She'd quit her paralegal job and invested her entire savings based on his lies. The three of us became unlikely allies, meeting for coffee every few weeks to compare notes and support each other through the legal process. I keep thinking I should have known, Cassandra said one afternoon. The signs were all there. He was good at hiding them, Natalie added. I thought about that. About how Greg had fooled all of us. His wife, his girlfriend, his other girlfriend, the bank, our accountant, everyone. He's a sociopath, I said finally. Textbook, charming, manipulative, no empathy. People like that are experts at deception. The trial started 4 months later. Greg's lawyer tried to argue it was a misunderstanding, that he'd always intended to pay everything back, that the signatures weren't forged, I'd just forgotten I'd signed them. The prosecutor tore him apart, showed the jury 31 different signatures, pointed out the inconsistencies, brought in a handwriting expert who testified they were definitely not mine. Natalie testified, then Cassandra, then me. I sat on the stand and told the jury everything. The missing college fund, the secret apartments, the offshore accounts, the 2 years of systematic lies. Greg's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, a scorned wife seeking revenge. Is it true you filed for divorce the same day you learned about the affair? He asked. No, I said. I filed for divorce the same day I learned my husband had committed fraud. Isn't it possible you simply misunderstood the financial arrangements? I'm a certified accountant with 15 years of experience. I understand financial arrangements just fine. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Greg got 18 years, eligible for parole after 12. The judge ordered him to pay full restitution plus damages. Every penny he'd stolen, plus interest and legal fees. You systematically defrauded your wife, your business partners, and multiple financial institutions, the judge said. You showed no remorse and no accountability. The only reason we're not seeing a longer sentence is your lack of prior criminal history. I sat in the courtroom and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness. Our kids weren't there. I'd kept them away from the trial, but I told them about the verdict that night. Is Dad going to jail? Our daughter asked. Yes. For how long? A very long time. Our son was quiet. Then, good. That surprised me. He hurt you, he said. He hurt all of us. He should pay for that. They were growing up faster than I wanted them to, learning lessons I wished they didn't have to learn. The civil case settled 6 weeks later. Greg's lawyer convinced him to sign over everything rather than drag it out. I got the house back plus the $2 million in fraudulent properties. The offshore account was seized and returned. The college fund was replenished with interest. After legal fees and paying off the bad loans, I walked away with $180,000 in our original house. Natalie and Cassandra both got settlements. Not as much as they deserved, but something. I sold 4 of the 5 properties. Kept the Riverside apartment where Natalie had lived, renovated it and moved us in. Better schools, better neighborhood, a fresh start. Our daughter started painting again. Our son joined the basketball team. They both still saw their therapist, but the sessions got less frequent. I went back to work full-time, took over the business entirely, rebuilt the client list, hired new staff. Within a year, we were profitable again. Greg wrote me letters from prison, long rambling things about how sorry he was and how he'd change if I gave him another chance. I never responded. On the 1-year anniversary of Natalie showing up at my door, I took the kids out to dinner. Nice restaurant, cloth napkins, the kind of place we couldn't have afforded a year ago. Why are we celebrating? Our daughter asked. Because we survived, I said. And we're stronger now than we were before. Are we? Our son looked skeptical. Yes. I meant it. Your father tried to destroy us, and we're still here, still together, still building something real. They thought about that. I'm glad you didn't let him, our daughter said quietly. Me too. We ate and laughed and made plans for the future. College visits, summer trips. Normal things that normal families do. When we got home, there was a letter in the mailbox from Greg. Another apology, another plea for forgiveness. I threw it away without reading it. That night, I sat on the balcony of our apartment and looked out at the city, thought about everything that had happened, everything I'd lost, and everything I'd gained. I'd lost a marriage, a life I thought I was building, a future I'd planned for. But I'd gained something more important, self-respect, independence, the knowledge that I could survive the worst and come out the other side. My phone buzzed. Text from Natalie. 1-year anniversary of the worst and best day of my life. Thanks for not hating me, I typed back. Thanks for telling me the truth. Cassandra joined the text chain. Grateful for you both. Couldn't have gotten through this alone. We made plans to meet for brunch the next weekend. The 3 of us. The women Greg had tried to use and destroy. Except we hadn't been destroyed. We'd rebuilt. I thought about that a lot over the next few months. How easy it would have been to fall apart. To blame myself, or stay in denial, or let Greg's betrayal define me. But I hadn't done that. I'd fought back. Our son asked me about it one evening while we were doing dishes together. How did you know what to do? He said. When everything fell apart? I didn't. I told him. I just did the next right thing. Then the next. Then the next. Were you scared? Terrified. But you did it anyway. Sometimes that's all you can do. He dried another plate. I want to be like you when I grow up. My throat tightened. You already are. The second year was easier. The kids adjusted to their new school. I doubled the business revenue. We took a vacation to the beach. Started building new memories that didn't include Greg. He called from prison on our daughter's birthday. I let her decide if she wanted to talk to him. She thought about it for a long time, then shook her head. Maybe someday, she said, but not today. I was proud of her for that, for setting her own boundaries, for not letting guilt or obligation override her feelings. Our son never asked to talk to Greg, just quietly removed all the photos of his father from his room and never mentioned him again. Different kids, different coping mechanisms, both valid. I dated for the first time in 15 years. Awkward coffee meetings and dinner conversations where I had to explain what had happened with my ex-husband. Most guys ran when they heard the story. Too much drama, too much baggage. I didn't care. I wasn't looking for another relationship, just trying to remember what it felt like to be wanted by someone who wasn't lying about everything. Then I met Harrison at a business conference. He was 42, divorced, had 2 teenage daughters of his own. He listened to my story without judgment, shared his own. We laughed about the absurdity of dating in your 40s with traumatized kids and trust issues. Want to be dysfunctional together? He asked after our 3rd date. Absolutely, I said. We took it slow, really slow. 6 months before he met my kids. Another 6 before I met his. A year before we talked about moving in together. I'm not in a hurry, he said. We've both been through too much to rush into anything. I appreciated that more than I could say. The kids liked him. He didn't try too hard or push too fast, just showed up consistently and treated them with respect. He's not trying to be our dad, our son observed one day. No, I agreed. He's just trying to be Harrison. I like that. By year 3, we'd created a completely new life. New apartment, new business success, new relationship, new routines. I barely thought about Greg anymore. He was just background noise. A mistake I'd made and learned from. Natalie got promoted to senior accountant. Cassandra finished law school and took a job at a women's rights nonprofit. We still met for brunch once a month. Our trauma bond had evolved into real friendship. Can you believe it's been 3 years? Cassandra said at one of our brunches. Feels like another lifetime, Natalie added. It was another lifetime, I said. We're different people now. They nodded. We all were. I thought about that often. How trauma changes you. How betrayal reshapes your worldview. How survival teaches you things you never wanted to learn. But also how resilience grows in the cracks. How strength builds from necessity. How sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for becoming someone better. Greg got denied parole after his first hearing. The board cited his lack of genuine remorse and his continued attempts to minimize his crimes. He'd have to serve the full 18 years. I felt nothing when I heard. No satisfaction, no anger, just indifference. He was a chapter I'd closed, a lesson I'd learned, nothing more. Our daughter started high school. Our son was applying to colleges. Harrison and I got engaged. Small ceremony. Just our kids and closest friends. Are you happy? He asked me the night we got engaged. Yes, I said, and meant it. I really am. Because I'd learned something important through all of this. Happiness isn't about having a perfect life. It's about building a real one, with honest people, with clear boundaries, with the courage to start over when everything falls apart. I'd started over, and built something better than what I'd lost. That was the real victory. Not the court case or the settlement or watching Greg go to prison. The victory was waking up every morning and choosing to keep going, to keep building, to keep believing that good things were still possible. Our wedding was small and perfect. The kids stood up with us. Natalie and Cassandra were there, my sister, a handful of close friends. No drama, no lies, no secrets. Just real people building something real. I'm proud of you, my sister told me at the reception. You could have given up, could have stayed angry, could have let what Greg did define the rest of your life. I couldn't do that to the kids, I said. It wasn't just for the kids. She squeezed my hand. You did it for yourself too, and that matters. She was right. I had done it for myself, for my own survival, my own future. That night, after everyone had gone home and the kids were asleep, Harrison and I sat on our balcony looking out at the city lights. Any regrets? He asked. I thought about it. About the life I'd lost, the years I'd spent with Greg, the betrayal and pain and struggle. No, I said finally. Everything I went through brought me here. To this moment, to you, to this life we're building. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. Because those were the parts that taught me who I really was, what I was capable of, how strong I could be when everything fell apart. I'd survived the worst, and found myself on the other side. That was worth more than anything Greg had tried to take from me. 4 years after Natalie showed up at my door with that apartment key, I stood in my kitchen making breakfast for my family, our kids, Harrison's kids, all of us together in a home built on honesty and trust. My phone buzzed. Email from the parole board. Greg was up for review again. I deleted it without reading further. He wasn't my problem anymore. Hadn't been for years. I poured coffee, flipped pancakes, and listened to the sound of teenagers arguing over bathroom time. Normal family chaos. The kind I'd fought for. The kind I'd earned. And somewhere in a prison 200 miles away, Greg was learning what it felt like to lose everything. While I was here, living proof that sometimes the best revenge is building a life so good that the person who betrayed you becomes completely irrelevant. I smiled and called the kids down for breakfast. This was my life now. The real one. The one I'd built from the ashes of everything I'd lost. And it was beautiful.